Hey, are you thinking about getting a Tesla because you've heard from friends and family about all the benefits of going electric? And you want to get these benefits, but you're not quite sure if the switch to EV is worth it for you. If you think a 30-minute test drive isn't enough to make the decision to switch to electric, you're probably right. And you're going to find in this video, there's a bunch of reasons why you should probably rent a Tesla for about 30 plus days before you decide if you're ready to make the switch to a full electric car.
I have to go make a call.
My name is Nick from Rowan. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the 10 questions that you need to be asking yourself to find out if you're ready for an EV car, because let's face it, it's basically just one giant electric pet that you have to care for and maintain. It's going to be different from a gas car. Before we get started, you might as well just stop watching this video right now if you don't have range anxiety. You haven't already seen hundreds of Tesla Model 3s on the road. If you've already watched a zillion YouTubers explain why they've made the switch to electric. And most importantly, you don't want to save money. But let's face it, even if you've had exposure to an electric vehicle, whether sitting in it in a neighbor's driveway or spending a 30-minute test drive, the truth is you need a little bit more time and questions to understand if it fits your lifestyle, your commute, most importantly, where you live and your driving conditions. Best way to answer all these questions, rent a Tesla for 30 plus days and figure out if it's something that you can live with and work your schedule around to get all the benefits of electric car ownership. Firstly, before we get started, before you even consider an EV, you have to be willing to know you have to make some changes to your habits around charging and just be slightly more responsible and proactive around EV ownership. And you'll find that the trade-offs are obviously well worth it in terms of gas savings, electricity. And you'll also find out the reason that EV ownership is like a cult is because all of these habits have to be learned by EV owners, and it's fun to talk about. Okay, so question number one, you gotta ask yourself, can you maintain a consistent charging schedule? The question is a little bit more in detail relating to, hey, can you wake up 10 minutes earlier? Anyone can take a Tesla Model 3 for a 30-minute test drive and be impressed, but the truth is you gotta live with the vehicle for 1 to 3 days overnight to understand what it's like to actually charge the vehicle. And really only after taking the vehicle for about 7 plus days, you'll understand how it actually works with your schedule, whether it's a long weekend drive, dealing with a charging station, or just figuring out what the real world range will actually look like. We're talking long weekends, holidays, road trips, cold weather conditions. All of these things will affect the way that you have to plan your trips with your car. Ultimately, it's really easy to stay accountable to a schedule for a 30-minute test drive, 1 to 3 day rental. But the truth of the matter is you're gonna find out if you're willing to be consistent enough after 30 plus days of renting a Tesla to decide that you're ready to own one. Question number two, you gotta ask yourself, are you willing to precondition your battery before you start a road trip? Preconditioning is basically letting your car start up and letting Tesla know where you plan on driving before you actually start your car. Preconditioning does a couple things, but most importantly, it'll allow you to charge percentages of the battery and only use reserves that basically Tesla will accommodate on their supercharging network along the way. This means that by the time you get to a supercharger, if you have to charge en route, it's actually faster. But the trade-off is you may have to wait 5 to 10 minutes or wake up 5 to 10 minutes earlier, right, before you can get your road trip started. If you can build that new routine, by all means, you'll get the most out of your electric car. Question number three, you gotta ask yourself, are you okay with planning longer road trips just so you know that you have the proper charging route if you need to go out of the way? Let's face it, you'll probably have to plan your trip around a few of these charging stations if you're going on a long distance drive. And don't worry, the car will actually figure out most of these things for you, as will most electric cars. However, it's just something you need to consider. You may spend an extra amount of time on the road, going slightly out of your way, so it's just something to consider. Question number four, are you willing to wait at a busy charging station? So the worst thing that could happen is you pull up to the charging station and you find out, oh my gosh, it's busy, I have to wait.
No, God!
Certain people may be okay with that, but others may find it a little bit irritating. Again, this is the trade-off that you learn about yourself. All of these things are the extreme negatives, and definitely 1 out of 30 times you may find yourself in this situation. But that being said, more times than not, you're gonna find the benefits outweigh the negatives, but this is something that Tesla owners don't tell you or you don't find out until you've actually owned the car for 30 plus days. Number five, can you accept up to 30% decrease in range or efficiency on your electric battery in the wintertime or in terrible winter conditions? Look, stop right now if you have range anxiety. But the truth of the matter is most people overestimate and they find it's actually not as bad as they think it'll be, especially with how compatible Teslas are with figuring out the route and the planning and the charging stops along the way. That being said, if you have a 600 kilometer range, you could be limited to maybe 400 kilometers in a very cold winter season, or if the drive is a little bit more treacherous and your vehicle has to use a little bit more power. Keep in mind, obviously going from a 600 kilometer range to a 400 kilometer range will completely change the days that you have to plan your charging. Now, if you live in a condo, does this mean it's 1 extra day per week that you have to find or fight for a charging spot? These are all questions that you gotta ask yourself that you can only find out if you rent a Tesla for 30 plus days. Battery degradation. Number six, are you okay with knowing that as you drive your car, the battery will slowly degrade, which means your charging capacity will slowly get worse? It's no different than just a giant cell phone. Are you okay with this? If your vehicle runs at a consistent liters per 100 kilometer capacity, whether the vehicle is 5 years old or brand new, they tend to be very close to this metric that you'll find on the paper. That being said, with EV cars, you could expect a decrease in range. It's a question you gotta ask yourself. Number 7, most importantly, do you have a consistent place to charge your vehicle? This is a Tesla, this is any EV. Whether you live at a condo or you live at home, it's important to understand what capacities you can charge your vehicle at level 1, 2, or 3. 3 being the supercharger network, and level 1 being all the way at home, just in a regular outlet, 3-prong with a trickle charger overnight. If you're charging it this way, it could take 12 hours. However, if you live in a condo, obviously you'll have to fight for a level 2 charger that may be installed in your building, and you just have to make accommodations around that. Will you be eventually willing to upgrade if you live in a house or residence to having a power pack on the wall or installing a level 2 charger so you can get a faster fuel efficiency? This is an investment, and if you're not ready to make that investment right now, you're not going to get the most out of your electric car today, and you're probably not worth switching. The only way you can find out if you're willing to make that investment is if you rent a car for 30 plus days. Can you accept with a Tesla Model 3 that you will not have a regular key fob? That's a question you got to ask yourself. If you're in an underground parking garage or you go camping a lot and maybe you have a bad signal, is that something that you can live with? Bottom line, these are questions that are very important, but when you have a Tesla, you basically have the credit card and you tap the car and it opens it and it all uses data. So if you can't live with being off grid or going without data, then that's going to be a problem for you. Last but not least, number 10, the most important one of all. Are you okay with still going electric if you find out the car won't actually save you money? So it sounds crazy, I know. The whole pitch for electric is it's going to save you money on gas. But that being said, rates increase over time. Gas prices also tend to go up and down over time. So that being said, if you find that you're paying for a premium for a Tesla and you do the math backwards, and like in the summertime, the gas drops again, are you okay knowing that your monthly payment all in, regardless of gas, just total cost of ownership to get the car on the road is going to be perhaps the same as a regular car? Maybe a premium vehicle, you're gonna save money on charging, but you're ultimately gonna pay more for your monthly car payment. Totally fine, there's obviously a lot of benefits to electric car ownership, but it's a question you'll have to ask yourself. Would you be okay knowing that you're making these sacrifices or switching to electric if it's actually gonna cost you more? If the answer is yes, you should probably test one out anyways and see if that's something that you can still swallow for 30 plus days and make sure that that's a good fit for you. Okay, so when it comes to actually renting a Tesla for 30 plus days, what are the options available to you? Option number 1, you can use Turo, which is basically a car sharing platform. Users will post their vehicles for other users to rent. It's basically the Airbnb of cars. They offer really, really fast turnaround times. You can get a vehicle for 1 day, up to 7 days. Great thing about it is how quickly you can do it. The bad thing about it is how expensive it can be and add up. So if you're planning on getting a car for 30 plus days, it might not be the best solution. Option number 2, you can get a vehicle through a traditional rental car company like Hertz. They have programs available and they have electric cars. That being said, it all depends on availability, location, and more importantly, when and if you do have questions. Nobody at Tesla or Hertz is gonna be able to answer you. More importantly, when you go to Hertz, you're probably gonna have a question about your Tesla or electric vehicle ownership, whether it's charging your car, maintaining it, or just really simple driving, daily questions you might have. You're probably not gonna get the support that you need. Option number 3, Roam. We offer long-term rentals, short-term leases. We call them car subscriptions. They include 1 monthly payment and they give you the ability to test a Tesla for 30 plus days to decide if that's a decision that you would like to make in terms of ownership, driving the car, and just living with it and making the switch to EV. If you've watched all the way through it, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. My name is Nick from Roam. I'm one of the vehicle specialists here, and we're just trying to help educate people that are willing to make the switch. These are the things you probably don't hear about. Everybody is selling EV, everybody is selling Teslas, but these are the realities that you should know as a Tesla owner. So the 10 things you should know and ask yourself that if you want to be responsible for before you make the switch to EV. Thanks so much.